Good morning and welcome to our daily devotional from Pilgrim Congregational Church. I'm Patrick Horn. Very glad to have you with us on this Friday morning, February the 13th, 2026, as we conclude our look this week at the account of the Transfiguration in the book of Matthew. So we have been studying Matthew chapter 5, Matthew chapter 17, 5 was last week, Matthew 17, 1 through 9. And this is Matthew's account of the extraordinary event of the Transfiguration. And we've been focused on several things this week: the continuity with the Old Testament, the distinctiveness of Jesus as the Son of God. And now I would like for us to focus on verse 9 of this story of the Transfiguration. This is in the beginning of the conclusion of the story. It's the last verse in the lectionary. We studied on Tuesday night that Matthew probably meant for verses 10 through 13 to continue the story concerning the question of Elijah coming to the earth. But we're going to conclude this morning with verse 9 because it contains a very important element that is often overlooked, underemphasized in modern Christianity. And so this is Matthew chapter 17, verse 9. As they were coming down the mountain, Jesus ordered them, "Tell no one about the vision until after the Son of Man has been raised from the dead." So you have instructions here from Jesus to the disciples about this, what he describes as a vision, this experience of God's presence in the face of Jesus, in his clothes, in the bright cloud above, the voice from heaven, the presence of Moses and Elijah. And he gives instructions for them not to tell anyone about this event. And it does remind us a little bit of the way that Mark speaks sometimes of often referred to as the messianic secret. And but I think there's probably something else going on here that has more to do with Jesus' relationship, or I should say, I think it has actually more to do with the fact that this has been written many years after Jesus has died and has been raised from the dead. So this phrase, raised from the dead, would have been very familiar to the reader, though very strange to the disciples. And so the disciples at the time would not have known very clearly what Jesus was talking about. And so, however, the readers of this text, of course, of the early church, would have been very familiar with this phrase of one who has been raised from the dead. But the part that I want to emphasize is the fact that Jesus refers to himself as the Son of Man. Now, this phrase is very much connected to the Old Testament and very much connected to the idea of judgment and the last days. That is, the Son of Man is one who's often spoken of as the judge at the last judgment, or at least the one who is present at the last judgment when discussed. But it is also an expression, of course, of the humanity of Jesus. That is very much a part of the picture here. There is revelation here about who this Messiah is, who this new king is, Yes, this is, as the voice from heaven expresses, this is the Son of God, the beloved. But there's that other part that we keep referring to as well, the references to the suffering servant in the book of Isaiah. With him I am well pleased. That is, this is the one, the servant who suffers, identified with Moses and Elijah, who were not fully accepted by their communities. That Jesus is identifying with those who, not only heavenly figures who were thought of in Jewish tradition as having gone directly to heaven, but also as figures who suffered from their own communities, who were attacked and criticized by their own communities. And this is a very important part of the gospel story. It's one that I feel like I mentioned earlier that modern Christians don't like to emphasize because it feels like weakness to us. That is the humanity of Jesus. And of course, it is weakness. And this is a central part of the gospel, that is, that it is the weakness of humanity that is being glorified by God's presence in Jesus Christ. And this approach to life as sacrificially serving those in the community. It is a message of a new kind of kingdom that does not resonate with what we ordinarily think of in relationship to a king and a kingdom. And this term, Son of Man, I think carries that sort of weight for us. It carries the weight of the weakness, the limitations of being human, while at the same time the acknowledgement that it is this weakness, it is this dependence upon God, it is this poverty of spirit, as the Beatitudes emphasize, that is connected to the kingdom of heaven. And I think very much captured in this phrase, the Son of Man, who will be raised from the dead. Powerful phrase right here at the end of this account of the Transfiguration. Let's close with this word of prayer from W.E. Orchard. Most merciful and compassionate God, Thou knowest our nature and readest our innermost thoughts, and nothing can be hidden from Thee. Help us then to unburden ourselves of every disguise we wear before the face of humanity, and help us to find rest in being what we are and nothing more. Enable us to put off all sham and pretense, so that from this point forward we may live a life of freedom and sincerity. Be patient with any of us who still prefer shows of vanity and empty pride to the shelter and refuge of truth. Leave us not alone completely when at length we face the disillusionment of life, when our hopes fade away and ambition fails us. Be near us, nor of thy goodness leave us to despair. We feel that thy sheltering love has been about us all our days, wooing us to better things, but we are conscious that oftentimes we have done despite to thy grace, and our foolish hearts have spurned the only love that would stoop to such as we. If thy goodness were not infinitely patient and thy love were not stronger than our stubbornness, we would all be lost and undone. When disappointed with ourselves and sickened with our own sin, and when life has gotten the better of us and we are wounded by the world, we turn to Thee. Though late we may come to Thee, the hour and life's day comes to an end. Reject us not, for pity's sake. forgive us, and embrace us with thy love. Amen. Thank you for joining me this morning from Pilgrim Congregational Church. I'm Patrick Horn, and I hope that you have a very good day. Goodbye.